Back to July 1945. While London celebrates, a courier runs through rain with a sealed envelope. No champagne Europe's future, written in ink and fear headed to a back alley meeting before dawn. In a dim alley, a Soviet gloved hand takes the envelope. No shots are fired on this battlefield. Paper is ammunition. With that handoff, Stalin can learn the West is considering a first strike. At a forward HQ, an agent types a coded message on a Jeep tailgate. Each keystroke turns paranoia into orders. The instruction, born in May, is blunt. Impose the will of Britain and the United States on Russia. The Soviet contact vanishes with the envelope. Churchill may never have known, but Moscow had ears in London. And while the West sketched arrows on maps, the Red Army tightened its grip on Berlin. In Berlin's ruins, Soviet soldiers stretch barbed wire and aim at fleeing civilians. To Churchill, this isn't liberation, it's a new occupation. The war has just ended, and fear has already changed uniforms. July was the surprise blow that ignites an impossible war. At dawn, near Dresden, Allied guns shatter the silence. Phase 1 begins, a blitz against yesterday's ally. For days, surprise works, and the Soviet line staggers backward, confused and furious, as the new war reveals itself. Infantry storms smoking trenches, grenades, mud, and screams. This isn't politics anymore. It's hand-to-hand reality. And with every meter gained, planners learn the problem. Russia doesn't fold. It regroups. Sherman tanks burst through smoke, crushing a roadblock on a polished road. The advance looks miraculous, Patton dreaming of Moscow, maps filling with arrows east. But distance begins to eat fuel and time, faster than any enemy shell. From a sandbag post, an armored commander waves the columns onward. Every gesture demands more trucks, more shells, more intact bridges. And here the plan leans on one decisive advantage: owning the sky to cut Soviet lifelines. But surprise doesn't last. A Soviet runner sprints through craters with a field foam the command chain snapping awake. Stalin doesn't debate, he buys time. Within days, reinforcements arrive and the orders harden. Hold, then strike back. From the tree line, T-34s roll out like a tide of steel mini, fast, reliable. The Allies have fewer divisions, and the planners knew it. The math was always ugly. Now, on the ground, that math starts collecting its debt. To compensate, engineers plant charges at a rail junction. If you can't beat the Red Army man for man, you try to starve it of fuel. Bridges, tracks, trains each blast buys days, before mud stops everything. And here comes the file's darkest page. To find bodies, the plan proposes rearming 100,000 German POWs men just defeated, now handed rifles again. Morally bankrupt, strategically desperate, and on paper, somehow necessary. On the road, Allied troops and Germans march shoulder to shoulder. Victory becomes a shameful secret. And it still doesn't fix the math. The USSR has more divisions, more tanks, and a higher tolerance for losses. Air power. The Allied bet to shatter Soviet logistics. On a wet runway, RAF bombers lift into low cloud. The logic is simple. No trains, no fuel, no Red Army movement. But every sortie also stretches Allied supply lines longer, thinner and easier to break. From altitude, bombers hunt bridges and rail junctions. One strike can sever an entire front. The file calls it logistics strangulation. On the ground, it means burning villages and stranded columns stuck, exposed, and running out of time. A supply train derails, steel twisting like paper. Each car lost is food, ammunition, fuel. The plan depends on chaos behind Soviet lines. But Stalin answers the same way he always does, replacing broken machines with more men. When a fuel depot erupts, it's not just a targeted momentum lost. Soviet columns saw as smoke marks the map. Yet the Red Army doesn't collapse. It adapts, spreads out, and finds new routes forward. Fighters drop low to strafe Soviet convoys on open roads. Air superiority is real but limited. You can't bomb mud, winter, or willpower. And every truck destroyed leaves men scrambling for supplies on foot, under constant pressure. Soviets abandon crates, drag what they can, improvise carts. In British memos, it's logistics degradation. In real life, it's hunger and cold. And when logistics break, the front doesn't just stop, it starts to rot. Now the same problem hits the Allies. Supply trucks push through smoke and flooded tracks. The farther you go, the more your fuel lags behind. The plan isn't fighting only tanks anymore. It's fighting distance. And distance wins. In Berlin, searchlights sweep rubble streets. The file predicts it. If the war drags on, cities go dark again. Borders harden, civilians run, and the dream of a liberated Europe turns into a continent split by force. And collapse looks like Paris civilians running past shattered storefronts, smoke over rooftops. In the simulation, Stalin opens new fronts and drives west. Suddenly it's not about Poland, it's about France. And what comes after, across the channel? Mud stops the advance. The war slides into stalemate. On the Polish plains, convoys sink to the axles. Wheels spin, men push. This is how offensives die. The file predicts it coldly. Once surprise is spent, logistics decide. And logistics are drowning in mud. A half-track bogs down. The line waits. Every stalled minute is a window for the Soviets to regroup. And they regroup fast. Tanks, guns, men. The West wanted a short war. The ground demands a long one. Recalmed Germans reload behind a wall, counting their lost magazines. They fight for their homeland, but they're fed by Allied supply lines already fraying. On paper, they were reinforcements. In reality, they're a measure of desperation. Then the flanks collapse. T-34s swarm the sides, hunting encirclement. The numbers more than 2.5 to 1 are felt on every rigid. And when the pocket threatens to close, the war stops being an offensive and becomes survival. Soviet artillery answers with a rolling wall of fire saturation, not precision. In British language, this is total war. For the men beneath it, it's a constant punch, setting up the next move. Human waves. Soviet infantry charges in waves across ground. The file feared this. Stalin accepts losses the West can't stomach. Each assault burns ammo, nerves, lives. And when the line gives, it's not one sector falling, it's the map. Medics carry wounded on canvas stretchers. The war meant to save Poland is now shredding everyone. On the report, it's acceptable losses. On their faces, it's the same question. Why are we still here? Then Stalin changes the board. Soviet troops land on a Norwegian fjord, opening a new front. The simulation warned it. The USSR doesn't just defend, it attacks where it hurts. Every new front thins the Allies further. As the Eastern Front bogs down, Soviet armor rolls into France. The war rushes toward the Channel. With Paris in danger, politics breaks. If France falls, Allied credibility falls with height. This is the moment. The nuclear card appears. Nuclear shadow. 2 bombs, 1 decision. Europe as the target. In New Mexico, technicians raise goggles toward the test tower. In our history, it's the birth of the atomic age. In the unthinkable timeline, it's a race. Build a weapon to stop Stalin before he reaches the Channel. A BJ-29 rolls down the runway. In this plan, it's not the Pacific, it's a message to Moscow. The aircraft meant for Japan now targets Soviet staging areas in Europe. Destiny is decided quietly, under low cloud. On the ground, crewmen push a trolley with an atomic bomb. It weighs more than metal. It weighs a decision. In August 1945, Truman has 2. One might buy time. 2 could burn a continent and still not be enough. The bomb falls and the world turns white. In this scenario, there is no Hiroshima. There is a European city or a hub in Poland, erased in seconds. It's the moment victory becomes radiation and the future becomes ash. A nuclear mushroom cloud rises over Poland. The file's own analysts feared the unthinkable. Even this might not stop the Red Army. If Stalin kept coming, America would need more bombs, endless rain. Europe could become a radioactive graveyard. Soldiers pull on gas masks as ash falls. In the plan, one word chills the page: contamination. Because after the bomb, there is no clean front. There's wind, dust, radiation. An army still trying to move forward, breathing death. Back in the archive, the historian closes the green folder as if it burns. The final question isn't what happened, but what we avoided. Britain's chiefs judge success impossible, and Stalin may have known through spies inside MI6